If you're a pro-life voter in Shakopee, you're going to want to hear this short video about where your candidates for the House of Representatives stand on pro-life issues. We have all of these details. Before the short video is over, you will know exactly where your candidates stand. One of them is staunchly pro-life. One of them is a committed pro-abortion politician. We're going to give you all the facts right now. Hey everybody, I'm Ben Dorr, Executive Director for Minnesota Right to Life, and in your House District 54A general election, you have current state representative and Republican Eric Mortensen. I want to give you some good news about Eric. To start things off, this is good news. Eric Mortensen has been the state's leading pro-life legislator in St. Paul. And I mean that very specifically because there's some that claim to be pro-life. There are others who claim to be pro-life and aren't at all. But Eric Mortensen is the very first state representative in the state of Minnesota to introduce life at conception legislation. That simply says legislatively that at the moment of conception, a baby is a baby. A baby has life. Okay. And it says that at the moment of conception, then that baby is deserving of all of the protections that you and I have, right? We are protected by Minnesota state law, and these babies should be as well. And Eric Mortensen, Representative Eric Mortensen, believed that so strongly that he sponsored the state's very first life at conception bill. So he did fill out his Minnesota Right to Life candidate questionnaire 100% pro-life. But again, the questionnaire doesn't really matter as much because his record in the legislature already accounts for it. So he promised to vote no on taxpayer-funded abortions, but he's already done that. He already voted no on taxpayer-funded abortions. He supports defunding Planned Parenthood, which is very important. It's very important. Again, taxpayer-funded abortions, right now, our tax dollars are paying for over 4,000 abortions per year in the state of Minnesota with our tax dollars. And then when it comes to Planned Parenthood, we're also funding them. Planned Parenthood gets huge money from taxpayers to continue killing babies. And so he's a strong advocate for defunding Planned Parenthood. I think they kill something like 70% of all the babies in Minnesota that are aborted, killed by Planned Parenthood. They shouldn't get any of our funding because at the same time, Planned Parenthood is also funneling millions of dollars into the elections to prop up pro-abortion candidates, right? To take over state legislatures or maintain control of our politics all across the country and continue pushing more money into their coffers. It's a nice little shell game they play. And Eric Mortensen supports defunding Planned Parenthood. And of course, he filled out his Minnesota Right to Life candidate questionnaire 100% pro-life. So if you're a pro-life supporter, if you're a pro-life voter, if you see Representative Eric Mortensen out on the campaign trail, thank him for standing against the tide. There was a lot of Republicans who didn't even want this legislation to be introduced, right? There was some organizations who were standing up and they claimed to be pro-life, but they are not in support of life at conception legislation. So it takes a lot to stand against the tide, and Eric Mortensen has done that his entire time in the Minnesota State House. So thank him for that. On the other hand, the Democrat running in the House District 54A general election is former Representative Brad Tabke. So all across the state of Minnesota, there's a lot of open seat races. You don't really know where candidates stand on issues, but we can tell you both about Eric Mortensen because he's the current state representative and has interacted with a lot of this legislation in the past, but now former state representative Brad Tabke. Brad Tabke is a committed pro-abort. And you can say, well, we don't know about that. But we do, because he was a state representative before. And in 2019, he voted for Senate File 12 on May 24 2019, and that vote funded the death of over 20,000 babies. Okay. 20,000 babies died in 2019 and 2020, and a huge swath of those were paid for with your tax dollars that Brad Tabke funded. So you might, depending on your perspective on things, you might sit there and try to argue that people should have the right to kill their own babies. We would disagree. But how can you sit there and say that we must fund it? Brad Tabke said that we taxpayers must fund these abortions, whether we believe in them or not. Shame on you, Brad. But that's what he did, and then he lost his reelection to Eric Mortensen in 2020. So if you see Brad Tabke, tell him to apologize for his pro-abortion votes, for his vote against the babies. Tell him to apologize for being so radical, right? I mean, some people on the left, they used to say, what was the phrase? Safe, legal, and rare. Abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. They don't say that anymore. Now it's abortions right now, on demand, paid for with your tax dollars. That's what they say. Some leftists, some Democrats have spoken up and said, we think that abortion should be legal up to and even after the moment of birth. This is what former governor of Virginia said, right? He went right on television and said, if a baby is born in a botched abortion, we'll make it comfortable and then we'll kill it. We don't agree with that. And I don't think you do either. So be sure to tell Brad to apologize for his anti-life record. When you get out and vote on November 8th, vote pro-life. But before you do, share this video with everybody you know in Shakopee who believes that babies should have a chance to live, that they deserve a future, that they deserve to be loved, cared for, cherished, they deserve to grow up, get married, have kids, have a future, have a life, make their own choices. That's what babies deserve. And it's not for us. It's not for those of us who get to breathe to take that right away from the unborn. So anybody you know in Shakopee and House District 54A who believes as we believe, be sure to tell them where these candidates stand. Again, thank you, Eric Mortensen, for standing up for the right to life. Brad Tabke should apologize for his pro-abortion vote. But share this video with your family and friends. Get out on November 8th. Let's vote pro-life and protect the unborn.